I'm really happy to be here, and I'm very happy to talk particularly, and we'll get there, about transit. Similarly, I think that top 3, but not just out of 30. I mean, I've seen about 45 films at TIFF this year already, and it's probably my top 2. I think it's a sensational movie, and we'll get there. So the plan for the evening is we're gonna chat for like about half an hour, 40 minutes, depending on how much you have to say. It's on you. No one cares what I think. And then we'll obviously have some time to turn over to the audience. And
that's cool.
Definitely we'll talk about your films and your roles and your process and your collaborations. But the first thing I'm kind of interested in is just this idea of festivals. I mean, you're still very much in an early point in your career, but just even based on what you just said, you were here as 8 years ago as a teenager. You've been in festivals in Europe. I'm interested in how attending festivals has changed for you, even just maybe the difference in European festival culture to being in Toronto. This is such a public festival, and if you've felt that difference, it's different than a festival like Cannes. This is a very audience-focused festival. Normal people actually see movies. So if you have any thoughts on that, maybe we can start there.
Well, I just came from Venice, and we had like quite a nice trip with Never Look Away, and now being in Toronto, I feel I really love the atmosphere here. It feels like the audience is so welcoming, and they really love movies. And as you said, like, people who want to see movies go to the movies, and not only film critics or people from other movies. So I had the impression that it's like really open, and you really can meet people afterwards. Not even a Q&A, not only a Q&A, but like in front of the cinema, people want to talk about the movie, what the movie was about. So I think for me, maybe it's the first time that I really start to enjoy being in a festival. Before it was like, okay, it's all new, it's all very exciting, so many people around, and now I feel you can start to get in contact with people by sharing the same love for movies.
Have you had the experience of feeling recognized, like on the street yet, at a festival, where someone was like, I clearly just saw you on screen 20 minutes ago? You know that look when you get it. It's like, where have I seen you?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's happened to you very memorably, but or if you've been starstruck seeing anyone out on the street in Toronto yet.
Well, since I did my series, it started that. Because I think it's different when you do something for television, because it's so much more easy to see it at home than instead of going to cinema. So since I did my series, it started that people look at me on the street. I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I still need to. Well, I'm not used to it, so I'm starting to learn it to deal with that. But yeah, sure, on the festival it's happens more easily.
And the other thing I'm interested in, because it's one very, very small thing that we might have in common, because in festivals our experiences are very different. You're an actor and very talented, and you go on stage and people see your films, and I'm none of those things, but juries are interesting. Because I know that you've been on a couple of festival juries, I read, and as an artist you're dealing with peers in that case. Does watching films evaluatively as a jury member appeal to you? Is that something that you find easy? Some actors and directors I've talked to say they find that very hard.
You mean like being in a jury?
Being on a jury.
Well, I did it once at the Cannes Series Festival.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, and that was amazing. Like seeing, we were a great jury and a great team, so that was a lot of fun to see all these different series to discuss it. But yeah, it's true. I think being in a jury, and I imagine it's like being a film critic as well, is the same challenge, that you're looking at something and you know that, I don't know how many people, but a lot of people put a lot of time and a lot of work in it, and you can not only judge by your own Geschmack, your own taste, but like I think you have to step away a bit from your own personal opinion, and then think of it in a more, I don't know, in a bigger sense. So it's not only, okay, I didn't like it, but maybe it's because you didn't sleep well. So I think you have to go more abstract steps to finally find an opinion that maybe says, okay, I think that was not my type of movie, so maybe I wouldn't see it personally, but still it can be a really good and well done movie with great performances. So I think it's a great challenge, but it is a challenge to be so open for every movie you maybe not want to see. So
no, that's a really eloquent answer. I mean, I'm curious too. I kind of know the answer because you said this outside. I was going to ask about, as a festival goer, if you're able to see films. I imagine with 2 films at TIFF, in this exact case, you're not able to. But are you a very habitual film goer at home, or does the idea of going to Cannes and watching movies that aren't yours for a week really appeal to you, if you could?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had, what was it, like during the Berlinale, I think there was Transit and Bad Bank, so I had a lot to do as well. I was really like, oh man, that time I really wanted to see movies, and then we happened to be in the competition. But I think I saw around 10 or 15 movies, and I loved it, like to see movies from other countries that maybe, or you may not see that easily in the cinemas in Germany. But yeah, I mean, it's my job working in cinema, so I think, okay, I should see movies to see what I like, well, what kind of movies I like, which styles, I mean, acting for me is such a myth, and I still don't know how it really works. So I'm always surprised by seeing other actors that really touch me, and I always want to find out how that works, that really moment when, as a spectator, you lose yourself in the performance of someone else. So I'm always curious to find great performances, to then think like, how did they do it? Why exactly?
Would you clearly snuck a look at my paper, because the next thing that I was going to ask you, quite literally next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's good. No. This is going very well. Was going to ask about actors who've inspired you, or performances who've inspired you. I want to talk in a minute about your beginnings, because you've already done a lot at a very young age, but maybe it starts, before we ask how you literally got into acting, does it start with performances that you saw? Whether you wanted to emulate them or copy them or be something like that, was there a performance that was really formative for you in any film?
No, I think that I was a child that really loved playing, and so I always had my toys. I built like stuff for them and saw stuff for them to make it a more complete world, and that continued by playing with friends and being like, okay, now we do that, and you have to say that, and then we go there, and we are like this group of this. And I just enjoyed playing. And then, because my 2 best friends, they went to a theater working group in school, and I was a bit jealous because they wouldn't have time after school due to that working, so in Germany we say AG. And then I said, okay, I get part of that group as well to spend more time with you. And in the end, it turned out that I played the leading role because no one else, so everyone was a bit afraid because you had to learn text, you had to dance and stuff. And I was like, okay, I could do it. And then before we had so I was 8 years old, and we got part of a little theater festival. And I was so afraid before the play started, and I was like, damn, why did I say I could play the main character? And was really frightened and like shaking. And then I stepped on the stage and I was like, wow, that was really, I don't know, incredible. Like in a real theater, and you have all these velvet seats with people on it, and everyone's like looking, and I don't know, that felt really different, and it touched me so much that 4 years later I wanted to do something like that again, so I started another theater. And then by accident, a casting director from the movie saw me and invited me for my first casting. So I think still it's just my joy of playing and pretending to be someone different and experiencing something different than in our normal day life.
So would you say that there's a continuity between, and again, when you're 8 years old, the idea of the word craft is not necessarily applicable, but you say it feels somewhat similar now, or are there all kinds of things? There's all kinds of things that sort of assert themselves in the intermediate time, right? In terms of technique and approaches and ideas about acting and things you take from directors.
I mean, as soon as you start to study something, you get the impression you don't know anything, because step by step you realize how much there's to learn. So I think when I was younger, or for my first movie, I wasn't thinking about anything because I didn't know what it's going to be like in the end. So maybe in a way I was well, without judging, you know, like just doing it because someone told me to do what I have to do. And now that I've started with learning different acting techniques, working on my voice, dancing, whatever, you start to think more. Or maybe that comes with the work, like working on the psychological layers of characters. Yeah, I think I start to think more about stuff, and that sometimes is not really helpful.
One thing, the last thing I'll ask, just in terms of the context of acting when you were very young, in North America, there's all kinds of opinions and to some extent anxiety about child acting, right? And, you know, the idea of, you know, parents, whether they're pushing their kids into it too hard or wanting to keep it out. I mean, was there any anxiety within your family or encouragement in terms of starting this? Because you might not have started when you were 5 years old, but you're still quite young
I was 14.
If you're doing that.
Yeah.
In a feature film, was it a supportive environment in that sense for you?
Yeah, absolutely supportive, but also like really choosing.
Good.
So my parents really wanted to get to know the director before we were shooting, and they were really like, okay, what kind of guy is that? What kind of movies does he do? Is he doing? So they were like checking it out, and as well as with my agent, like really checking out. Okay, is that a good thing to do? Because it's true, like starting to work with 14 can change you so much in your personal way, and I mean, there are so many careers from artists you can see where you may think, oh, maybe it wasn't good. They were put out in the working world when they were so young. So yeah, sure.
No, and I'm interested to know that that's a concern in the context of European industry as well, because in North America people talk about and fret about this all the time. One thing that I did not do my own research on because I don't speak German, but with Goethe helped me with, I heard, because you're talking about process and craft, and I find this very interesting, the idea of these notebooks that you have, is this a thing? You have notebooks for an approach to character? Am I telling you something that is not true?
No, it's absolutely true.
But I was worried that...
You lied to Christian Schwopper in that interview that I read.
No, it's true, but well, just to make sure that you read something that I'm preparing with my books for my... For
your roles?
Yeah.
So, to explain the thing that I'm talking about, these are these notebooks where you write about your character, right? While you're preparing?
Well,
or information on them?
Yeah, so it depends on the character. My preparation depends on my character. It's like, it's a bit esoteric, yeah. That I always feel like my character tells me what kind of preparation mainly she needs. And sometimes I write diaries from the perspective of my characters, but I always have it's a bit like my Bible, where I write everything in it. And sometimes it can happen that during a day of shooting you feel a bit like, okay, that I lost myself a bit. What was that scene about? Or it turned out to be totally different from what I expected it to be. And then it's good to have your Bibles be like, okay, I prepared myself, everything's fine.
So what did the Bible for Transit look like for this character, Marie?
Well, Marie was really special because, like, I don't know if you had the chance to see the movie, but if you will realize that the movie starts and then you see her for maybe a second and then she's gone. And then she comes back maybe 15 minutes later and she's there for 2 seconds, and then she's gone. So she's really like this. And it was the same energy to find this character. I was like, okay, who are you and what's your problem? So it really took me, I think, maybe the longest time to find Marie compared to the other movies. And in the end, I don't know what it really was that I got her, or maybe I got the sense of understanding her. Marie was more thinking about the complexity of being in a relationship that you kind of ended, you're in love with someone else, so she's really lost.
Well, and she's very elusive too. I mean, again, I don't want to spoil the movie if people are going to see it tonight, but the way you're describing her, it's such a glancing, barely glimpsed performance for a good long part of the film. And there's a lot of anticipation built up as to when we're actually going to meet this person. So the performance is kind of lopsided in that way. You know, a lot of your stuff is kind of later on.
Yeah.
But I'm interested, I mean, I'm super interested, and I hope you guys are at least somewhat interested in just talking about Christian Petzold. For me, he's such a major filmmaker, and the films have been getting better and better and better. Was he someone who you were very familiar with before being approached for this? Like, what was your impression of him? And just generally what the impression of him is in Germany, because sometimes filmmakers are greatly revered internationally, and at home they're more difficult and controversial figures, and my impression of Petzold and the Berlin School is not everyone is a fan. But then when you come to North America and you see him play in New York or Toronto, people see him as a great auteur. So I'm wondering if you had a sense of that.
I think there's like, Christian Petzold, I think, has his own fan club.
Sure.
That if...
President.
So if... I think either you understand it and you love it, or you're like, what is that about? Yeah. So, and I was really familiar with his work, and I remember Andrea calling me and saying, okay, I got this Christian Petzold diary script, and I was like, oh my God. So, yeah, I was really curious to meet him, because I had no idea how he would be. And it turned out that was one of the most relaxed first meetings for a project I ever had, and we were like drinking, I think, 5 cups of coffee until the casting director, who was in the room as well, was like, okay, shall we maybe start to talk about the book and not about everything else? So yeah, Christian he's a really smart filmmaker and a great person, and you can chat with him forever.
He's a big cinephile. I mean, he's seen everything.
Everything. You can ask him about like everything.
Any film ever made, yeah.
So yeah, and I really like him as a person. I think that most of the time is entscheidend, I have no idea, but like it's important for me how I like the person to decide if I want to do that movie, because you share a lifetime together. And shooting with him, there's this myth around Christian Petzold movies or shootings that he starts not before 8 o'clock in the morning, then you have a rehearsal for 3 hours, then the actors go in makeup, and then you start shooting for around 4 or 5 hours maximum, and then you finish at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening. It was like, okay, that sounds a bit high from the stakes, but it turned out to be true, and that's really rare that you don't start before 8 o'clock. You always have enough sleep, and then you start to rehearse, to talk about the scenes you will do during the day, and then you shoot it like right away because you have rehearsed it enough. And we were in Marseille, and we were finished at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we just had a great time in Marseille. So.
Well, I mean, location is something, and again, Transit is a hard movie in some ways to talk about because it's very dependent on narrative twists, but the biggest twist is in plain sight from the first 2 minutes, and every review's mentioned it, so I feel okay saying it, which is this, I think, quite brilliant and provocative conceit of a period piece with no period detail, right? I mean, that's not a twist. You read that in the TIFF program note. And I'm interested, I mean, in your thoughts on it, because you're in the film and it's a fascinating idea, and what you guys talked about that choice to make a movie that is set in 70 years ago in the past, and all the expectations we have about what a World War II period piece looks like, and whether that makes it feel safely old. and then just filming it in present-day Marseille and making no attempt to disguise that fact.
Yeah.
The lack of period detail was not a mistake or a matter of cheapness. It's, I think, the point of the movie, or one of the points of the movie. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sadly, it's too long ago that I remember the first side of the script, because Christian had a great quote in it, and it said something like, it's a ghost story from 1940 in our present day.
Yeah.
And that's a bit the spirit that so when I read it, I was like, okay, what that's supposed to mean? And then he talked about it, and when I see the movie now, for me it feels like it's kind of the soul from 1940 that is still not erlöst, maybe revealed, but, or not free, because we're still dealing with the same problems in society, or again, and maybe in another way around, but there's still going around looking for their freedom, or for, I don't know, Erlösung, what that means in English, but like for your
Deliverance.
Deliverance. And that's what I really like about the movie, that it's not, because the whole, how you say that in English, refugee situation, is that okay to say? Okay. Was totally different when we were shooting, and then of course during the time that we shot that the movie was finished and was released, the situation changed and was maybe more even, the movie was even more important when it finally came out. And what I like about the movie, that it's not like, okay, we can't do this, we can't do that, we have to take care of that, but it's like, it's showing so much from history, and then I love the mix, and yeah.
I mean, it's an astonishing, I think, example of using reality and the effects that you can get just out of reality, with the slight different context of what people say and what people do. The city becomes a character in a way that I think is just is just extraordinary. I mean, a couple of other points on Transit I want to ask. First of all, you talked about Petzold being a movie fan, and some reviews have cited this, so I wonder if it's a movie you guys talked about at all. And it's a pretty high comparison to make, as Casablanca. I don't know if that's one that came up, or
yeah,
if it's one that specifically was discussed on set. Maybe not say why the movie's like Casablanca, but if that was a movie whose shadow fell over the film at all, if you thought.
Yeah, well, Christian, if you start to talk to him and he's like, okay, let's talk about that movie, he will tell you 10 movies that are made in any kind linked to that movie. So, but what is great about Christian, that he loves sharing movies, and so during the preparation we were meeting in the whole team to watch movies, and then during the shooting, every night they had a beamer on the terrace in the hotel, and we were all watching movies every night. So it was a bit like we had our little film club, and that was great. And he showed us some movies he wanted us to see before the shooting, and the one that was the most important for my character was Fahrstuhl zum Schafott. I have no idea how the title is in English. Yeah, it's, well, whatever. But we were seeing a lot of movies that he wanted us to see.
And I'm interested, because I read an interview with one of the ones that I could find in English. Hopefully you remember what you said, because I thought it was very smart. Just talking about the significance of the title Transit on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Because again, not too many spoilers, but it is about characters who are trying to get different places, and so this idea of being able to move legally and freely, especially in a film set in the 40s. Transit papers are important, but also you said something about transit, particularly with regards to your character, that I thought was interesting and can maybe just entice people to see it that much more. And then no more spoilers, because it's dangerous. But maybe the idea of transit having a meaning for Marie in terms of relationships, and from person to person, maybe.
Yeah, well, it's hard to remember what I said at that time, because
it was really good.
Yeah, but you know, I'm totally in another PR for another movie now. I'm like, what did I say at that time? Yep, but again, what I like so much about the movie, that you can interpret so much in it and see so much and see so many connections. But if you don't want to, you don't have to, and that's what I really like. But wait, let me think about it.
Well, Paula is thinking it's the Louis Malle you were referring to, which was Frantic in the US.
Oh, okay.
Elevator to the Gallows.
Elevator to the Gallows. That's a great movie. Yeah.
How is it called in English?
Frantic in the US was the US release. Elevator to the Gallows.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I said. Maybe you can quote it.
I'll Google it while they're asking you questions. Now, the other film, and again, this is me being honest and admitting, I've not seen Never Look Away yet. This is because I've seen 45 movies at this festival, and I would rather not pretend to have seen it, but to ask you about it. I mean, what I find interesting about that, and Transit and FRANTZ together, I mean, we can speak specifically about Never Look Away, you seem to constantly be cast in like the first half of the 20th century. People want you to play a character, pre-1950. Is that something about a particular way that you look, or characters that you're drawn to? Yeah, well, I don't know. I wasn't alive then. I have no idea. But it seems that you've been in a series of period pieces. And I don't know if that's also just that there's a certain tendency in a kind of commercial German film to deal with the past and to deal with history, and if that's just a byproduct of that too.
Well, I have no idea, but I think what. Well, I did other movies taking place nowadays, but I think the movies I did in that period movies turned out to be quite successful internationally.
Yes.
So that's why I think these movies are mainly known, or I'm mainly known for them. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel that period movies have maybe a bigger concern that they want to be told. And period movies sometimes are more, but then again, it's not true. So, but maybe more aware that you find. I mean, movies that really want to tell something are aware, and I don't do a lot. So I really pick precisely what I want to do, because for me, it's like acting it's so much about being lucid and being open, and it takes a lot of energy. And I want the movies I do, I want to support like to more than 100%, and for me that's only possible if I choose what I want to do, because if I would do too much I would be like this, and that's not the way I want to treat movies.
So in the case of Never Look Away, which again, just as a general, first of all, the director Florian Henkel van Dondersmarck, Academy Award winner for Lives of Others. The film is epically long, 3-hour film, and it's based sort of loosely on Gerhard Richter, and sort of seems to me from reading about it, about the intersection of art and history and politics, and to some extent science. I mean, it sounds like a very, very complex weave of things. So what was the attraction particularly to that? You've now said, I only choose things that I really want to do. So why did you really want to do that?
Well, the first time I read the script, I was kind of, okay, what kind of movie is that going to be? Because it's so full and rich and complex, I think it's a bit like it mirrors life, because life is so weird and so complex and so strange to understand. And the script felt a bit the same, and I wasn't sure, okay, what's that going to be? And then I met Florian, and I remember he said something really clever about script, that there's always this problem with the script because it's always a document, and you can't be sure if you understand the pictures the writer tried to build up. So then actually we were talking 6 or 8 hours about the script, and then I was like, okay, I want to be part of it, because I was so fascinated by finally seeing all the layers that are in the script. I was so fascinated by the power of love that is told within that script, about I don't know how to say it, but in German history we suffer from that huge thing that Täter und Opfer. How do you say that?
Perpetrators and victims.
Yeah, they can meet in one family. So this is a really weird thing for society. And then again, art is in that script as well to a huge. Art is really important as well. So like these things combined, I was just was taken away from it, because it was like a story about all of that must be amazing.
Well, once again, you kind of anticipated what I was going to ask, and it's the heaviest that the questions get. Once we're over the hump, and it'll be light, and we can talk about Bad Banks, which is, you alluded to something I think very true and very smart, and that I agree with, particularly in North America, when it comes to both what kinds of German films play here, because there's an entire German commercial cinema that we don't see here, right? All countries have this. There are the kind of French films that don't get programmed at TIFF because they're commercial entertainment. There's South American films like this. There's entire industries in India and China that turn out commercial rather than art cinema. The kinds of German films that tend to travel and get nominated for Oscars and get programmed at festivals deal with the weight of what you're talking about, whether you want to subgenre it as World War II or Holocaust or guilt or perpetrating. And to some extent, I've always wondered if that's a cynical thing on some level, if it's an exportable thing to a North American audience, and how that feels in Germany versus how it is here. And you're very much at the center of a German film industry. You're a very successful actor appearing in these movies, if this is something you have thoughts on. Because I think it's a fascinating problematic in talking about German films, particularly as a non-German North American critic.
Yeah,
I know that's a lot, but...
I mean, it's true that if you compare German movies to American movies, that German filmmakers obviously have another way of telling stories. And since I worked in France, I realized that people creating movies, they work differently on it, and that is so close to their how the society itself is dealing with each other's, with problems, with, I don't know, with love, how they create their relationships. And so I think often movies are maybe a portrait of the society, of the country. And it's true that, I mean, that was amazing. Like 2 or 3 days ago, we had the Q&A for Never Look Away, and that was such a great ambience, and everyone was laughing and making jokes, and that would never happen in Germany.
No.
So we have a totally different humor. So
there are jokes in Germany somewhere, though, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like you can go see stand-up comedy.
Absolutely. But I think we have another kind of humor.
Yeah.
Maybe we laugh about different jokes, and that says so much about the culture, you know, and that's why the movies are different, and maybe that's why movies that are so heavy and drama, because I think Germans are really good at drama, that these are picked in other countries because they're like, oh, that's so German, and maybe what we love American movies for, that they combine like something important or like meaningful with a great sense of humor. That is something we can't really or easily do, and that's why we love these movies, and that's maybe why the Americans love certain German movies. And I think we can learn so much from each other by our cultural differences, and
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Certainly a hilarious moment in America right now. So funny every day. Right before I turn it over to the audience, because we started a bit late, I still want to have time, but I do want to ask, and we've missed FRANTZ, so if we have any big FRANTZ fans, it's a breakthrough performance for you, maybe ask. But I really want to ask about Bad Banks.
Yes.
And you know, my way of doing that was about, you're finally playing a modern character, like it's not a period piece, it's present tense and not the present pretending to be the past. But it seems like quite a fun character. Does she have a notebook, or does she have like an iPad or a cell phone or something? But I mean, she's just very modern. I mean, what's your notebook for Jana on the Bad Banks character? Do you have it on like a memory stick?
No, that was the biggest notebook I ever had.
Really?
Yeah, that was like no, but something like that.
Yeah.
And,
To describe the show, well, you should
Yeah.
describe the show if people haven't seen it.
well, it's about investment banking, and my character Jana is in the focus, and she starts as an assistant. Then she gets fired, and she doesn't really know why and what's happening. And then she gets a new job, luckily for her, because she has a issue with fear and panic attacks. So for her, it's really important to work, and she doesn't really know why she needs that work so much, but obviously she does. And then she gets more and more into the investment banking environment and understands what kind of rules you have to accept and play to get higher in the system. And I think it's not about, you don't have to understand anything about investment banking. Like, I'm not a pro for investment banking, but it's really about the emotional reasons maybe people get part of a system that is so weird to understand, and is a system that was created by humans and now is ruling the life of people. So it's, yeah, that's maybe what the show is about, to show really the human beings being part of this weird bank system.
And there's a second season upcoming?
Yes.
Yes, so you can watch all of season 1 here, and then wait to watch season 2. The last, what was one other thing that I was going to ask about bad banks, which is sort of just, so the show feels like a critique then to you, right? It's a show that's in that world, or does it criticize that world, or does it observe that world?
No, I think it doesn't criticize it. It's well, it's not saying it's good either, but it's not pointing fingers on it and saying, okay, this is a bad system. It just shows, I think, stories that can be true, like different characters in different positions, and why they're doing this job and how they do it, and how it all is linked together. And it shows a bit, maybe it tries to show a bit how crisis can happen, and if people are if they can earn money by making a bet that, I don't know, a country will be destroyed by a hurricane, that is a weird system. And but what is that doing to a human being, and with your moral and with your morals,
yeah.
and your, well, I mean, you're raised with a certain Werte, with a certain values, and that at one time you, in a job, you realize, okay, I can shift these values, and what's happening then? So I think that was what the season a lot is about. The show. What happens if you change your values, and what comes afterwards?
I've learned so many German words in the last 45 minutes. If anyone has any questions about films, acting, investment banking, anything, you don't need a microphone, but please ask away. You have a very talented and interesting person at your disposal, so go for it. Yes? Oh, there is a microphone. I totally lied. Let it come.
Thanks very much for being here. I wanted to ask you about not your current work, but perhaps about your future aspirations. Are there any particular directors with whom you'd like to work, perhaps outside of Germany? And are there any particular subjects or genres that you'd like to work in?
Well, it's always funny that, of course, you can have like your dream director you want to work with, but maybe in the end it turns out that I don't really like that person, and that it would maybe be fun to work together. So, and what also is a funny thing, that if someone comes to you and says, I would like to do that movie with you, you will see all those movies again, and you will see them differently, because I'm going to work with that person, and you're not only following maybe the stories, but how these movies are made, and then you're like, oh wow, these movies are even more amazing than I thought, or more clever, or I like them even less than I did before. So it's always interesting to discover the work again if you're asked to work with someone, because then you'll precise your view on it. And as an actress, as far as you're not producing or directing as well, or writing, you don't really know what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Like for my French movie, FRANTZ, they called me the day before the audition, and 2 weeks later I had the role, and a month later we were shooting, and that was like, it happened like that, and you never know what's going to happen. So I try not to expect something special to happen, or like I just want to play that kind of genre. I maybe would miss a great chance for another movie. But yeah, I think I like to be more surprised by what they ask me for, and then discover that script, than being like, I want to play that, because then maybe it turned out to be not as cool as I expected it.
But I will quickly intercede, because your next film is a French language film, right? Le Chant de Loup?
Yeah, but it's not what I'm going. Yeah. I mean, it will come out, but I already worked on it, so for me it's not like.
For you it's done, but I believe it's in post-production. I mean, that's an interesting aspect that we haven't talked about so much, that you're such a European actress.
I'm so European.
Oh, yes, you are. I mean, as Bad Banks is a European show in that it's set in Frankfurt and Luxembourg.
Yeah.
Luxembourg, yeah.
And it has all these. You play with the amazing Barry Atsma, who's a Dutch actor. So one of the things I loved about that was that sort of Euro flavor in Bad Banks. And you seem to do that so well. Like you move very effortlessly in that world.
Well, what I already said, that I think every country has its own society vibe, and I like when they all come together, because something new is created. And it's true that in Bad Banks we had people from Luxembourg, from Germany, and our Dutch boss, and that was great. Like everyone coming together, having another idea of acting, of making movies, of dealing with your colleagues, and suddenly you get like a real gang, and that's such a great atmosphere to work in. And as you said, Le Chant du Loup, which is in post-production now, and it's a French movie, that was my first complete French team except me. And yeah, I love it. It's for me, it's always frightening, like entering it, and it's like, oh my god, what did I say yes to? Because it's always a new territorium. But then you discover so great things, and I'd love to do that more.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Question. I must admit, I haven't seen a movie with you yet, but I will. So as a young person, things are always so immediate and related to yourself. And when you are older, you can stand more beside you and see things in a larger context. And when you play a role, are you playing yourself in that role, or
I hope not.
Completely dive into that character?
Well, the truth is that I can prepare as much as I want to finally get to that character, and that's me. And I think the thing I'm playing is somewhere in between, because I don't think that I can change that totally, because I have my 23-year experience with my body, with my voice, with my movements, and I can work on changing them. So I'm not my private person in front of the camera, but I won't change everything, because that is too close to the subconsciousness. But no, I always start like from a blank sheet, and then try to understand my character, and that is always a big question: how does that work? And where do you start from? Like when I got the actually 6 scripts for my series, for my show, I was like, okay, where do I start? If you have I think 700 pages of material, you're like, okay, how do you start something like that? And then you can start with looking at scenes, looking at behavior, skills of your character, of the world it's living in, doing research to get into this particular world. But I always, at least I'm trying to build a character, because I think there's nothing more boring to see an actor playing itself over and over again. Maybe that works for one character, but afterwards you'll be like, okay, she's again doing her certain regard. So no, I try to find my character, and I don't know how much that will come out in the end, but I'm definitely not private in front of the camera.
Maybe time for 1 or 2 more quickly before we raffle off some tickets. Yes, sir.
So my question would be, have you thought of ever a dream role that you would ever like to play?
Well, as I already said, I think there are script writers that are more or better than my illusion of the perfect role for me. And I really love reading a character or a script and reading it and being like, oh my God, what a great story, what great scenes, what a great character. And then accepting it and then being like, okay, but how do I get there? And then, because for me, acting is not only playing or shooting in front of the camera, but also the process of getting there. So as I told you, that's for me the big myth. Like, how does it work to become another character? And the long way and search for that is what makes acting for me so interesting. And then shooting is actually a bit the playground, and the preparation for that is what I love so much about it. And that's why I don't want to think about a character I'd love to play, but being surprised by what challenges I have to face.
If you spend more than 6 months in North America, you're legally obligated to audition for a superhero. Don't stay here too long.
Okay.
It's a legal thing.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
Marvel mails you and you have to come. Yes, maybe last question here.
You said at the beginning of this interview that when you were a kid, you played with different things and the intent was to complete the world.
Yeah.
To me, that's more powerful than something that we all know, to change the world. So your idea was to complete the world. How that evolved over the last, 15 years?
Well, maybe you got me wrong. It wasn't to complete the world, but my little children's playing world. But it's a good question, and I'm really asking that myself often as well. Like, what am I doing with acting, and is that really a job that is worth spending time on, and by seeing how the world is ruling, and if you see the problems we have all over the world. But I feel when seeing movies that stories in which way they're told, like movies, books, whatever, people like hearing stories, and they always like to be entertained, or and that's what I think, like transit. If people go out of the movie and say, oh, what was that actually about? Or they go out of a movie and think, okay, maybe I've learned something about love. And I think that is what I, as an actress, can give to people, that when I do my work and my preparation and my understanding of the script to a high, precisely, or if I do a good job there, and putting all my thoughts and all my energy in, that people can feel the truth, because I think a camera shows up every lie and every truth. So people are moved by the truth, and I hope that by creating my characters like that, that people can be touched by it and then learn something for them privately or in a bigger sense. And I don't think that I can change the world by doing movies, but I think I can touch people with the characters I play, I hope.